you could imagine someone comparatively harmless who toys with ritualistic satanic activities in a sort of dramatic manner. And then you could imagine someone who tortures nuns and priests and burns down churches, but forgoes any technical affiliation with Satan.
Right.
I would say that the latter is the Satanist in a much deeper sense than the former.
Jordan Peterson, in fact, I think this was like a day ago, had on Paul Kengor, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, and he has written a book about Satanism and Marxism and sort of the satanic atheistic worldview that undermines communism, the communism that played itself out throughout the 20th century. Let's dive in.
Marx had the devil's view of the world and the devil's malignity. Sometimes he seemed to know that he was accomplishing works of evil. I think that gets closer to it. Now, Pastor Richard Wurmbrand, who wrote the famous book Tortured for Christ, and was tortured for Christ in Romanian prisons by communist captors who were shouting, "I am the devil," while they were torturing him. He did a book called Marx and Satan. He's convinced that Marx was a Satanist and did some things ritualistically that it might have even been satanic. But I can't say that. I can't endorse that.
But you see evidence of that in his play.
I've never seen.
In terms of at least his fantasies.
That's right. That's right. In fact, Payne even goes so far as to say, Vladimir Lenin, right? There's a statement from Lenin which said, when I was a teen, I broke from all religion. I took the cross from my neck and I threw it in the rubbish bin. And Payne has a quote where, not Payne, Richard Wurmbrand, where I think he believes that Lenin even stomped on it. He says, well, that's a satanic ritual. I don't know. I don't know that it is or not. But there's another case of Lenin who at least did the work of the devil. I mean, Lenin had, according to Robert Conquest, W.H. Chamberlain, the first historian of the Russian Revolution, 500,000 people were killed from 1917 to 1923 under Lenin, not even including the Russian Civil War. If that's not the devil's work, I don't know what the hell is, right? But I think what Payne said in the latter quote, the devil's view of the world, the devil's malignity, and at the very least, this identification with kind of devilish-like destruction, right? Tearing everything down, rebelling against the world, everything that exists deserves to perish. That at least, and then the ideology that he created that just happened to be responsible for the deaths of over 100 million people in the 20th century, more than World War I and World War II combined. So that ideology was pretty hellacious.
To say the least. Okay, so, and I think it's very naive not to assume that the events that we described in Marx's life are not connected, right?
Yeah,
right.
Correct.
And that his economic polemics were somehow independent of his poetic imagination. It's like, obviously they weren't, because they wouldn't have had that motivational force. So they were calling on dark forces, obviously. So, because otherwise they wouldn't have compelled people in that manner, especially not toward that sort of immense sadistic murderousness and utter destructiveness.
And of course, get to the hatred of God, which all the communists did. So all the communists thereafter seek to ban religion.
Right. Atheists.
That's
right.
right.
They're not exactly atheists because they're trying to stomp something out.
That's right. It's not
a neutrality.
That's right. It's not a neutrality toward religion. It's not irreligion. It's not separation of church and state. It is militant, aggressive atheism. Trotsky and Lenin create the League of the Militant Godless.
Right.
They ban religion. They have the Moscow church trials. They blow up churches. They jail priests, right? The Solzhenitsyn writes in the Gulag Archipelago, they put nuns in special sections of the Gulag with prostitutes.
Yes, right.
Deem them whores to Christ.
Absolutely.
Lenin said, all worship of a divinity is a necrophilia. There is nothing more abominable than religion. So they don't just try to stop religion. They want Pol Pot, the Buddhist monks in Cambodia, to renounce their vows, to marry. It's not enough for them to be quiet. And so after 4 years, I don't
know how you can separate a militantly anti-religious atheism from especially, say, within a Christian context, from something approximating satanic ideology, because I don't see how conceptually that separation is possible. It's one thing to be atheist in the manner that leaves people to go to hell in a handbasket in their own way, but to be actually an enemy of the religious enterprise, that's a whole different thing.
It is.
So, And that obviously Marx and the communists were obviously that, clearly, obviously.
And Satan might say, I don't care if you believe in me or not, you're doing my work, man. I mean, you're shutting down churches, blowing up churches.
That also touches on the issue of what it means to believe, right? And I mean, you could imagine someone comparatively harmless who toys with ritualistic satanic activities in a sort of dramatic manner. Mm-hmm. And then you could imagine someone who tortures nuns and priests and burns down churches, but forgoes any technical affiliation with Satan.
Right.
I would say that the latter is the Satanist in a much deeper sense than the former.
That's
Not
right.
that what the former is doing is excusable.
Yeah, or at least satanic.
Yes, right. But to do what the communists did to the religious enterprise is evidence of something far more militant than a mere atheism.
All right, so now I'm going to read a stanza from Karl Marx's poem called The Fiddler, where he writes, "How so? I plunge without fail, my blood-black saber into your soul. Thou art God neither once nor wist, it leaps to the brain from hell's black mist. Tell hearts bewitched, tell senses real, with Satan I have struck my deal. He chalks the signs, beats time for me. I play the death march fast and free." And again, if this was just some other dude writing this, I would just think he was a weirdo. But to think about the actual real world fruit of this darkened mind is actually extremely, extremely disturbing, in my opinion. Here's another brief quote where he talks about the Prince of Darkness. This is from a poem titled The Player, and I'll just read this. It's just one very short couplet here. He says, "Thus heaven I forfeited, I know it full well. My soul, once true to God, is chosen for hell." I know it sounds dramatic if you are still inside of the brain box of believing that there is no spiritual warfare and that the only thing that exists is the material. But again, the people who are bringing about this great evil and this great destruction of humanity are doing so out of the framework of a worldview where they don't believe in God, good, or evil, and they like the devil and his call to total, unbridled human freedom. This is the problem with human-based moral relativism. This is the problem with basically the secular humanist experiment. It fails. And when an entire society buys into the worldview of atheistic communism, that there is no God and therefore the state is God, it leads to the bloodiest century in the history of the world. By the way, more people were killed under communism than in any other ideology in any other century of the world combined. The gravity of this cannot be overstated. The devil's biggest trick is convincing people that he is not real, that the only thing that is real is the material. So long as people in the global north and the west continue to buy into this deception, we will never be able to actually face the enemy of humanity in the eyes, the enemy who has come to rob, steal, and destroy. We're fighting in a battle blindfolded. We can't even see the enemy that we're fighting against. We don't even believe that he exists. So of course we're being taken advantage. I hope that this video, if you are in that box of materialism, can, through the unexpected means of facing evil, point you also to the source of good, which is God himself. I also wanted to tell you guys that I have created something for you, and I think it's special. Check this out. It's called the Wisdom Society, and what it is a growing community of believers from around the world. We meet weekly, discuss tough questions, read scripture, pray. There's also a book club where we are joined by the author of the book so that we can discuss the book directly with the author. We have Paul Copan, Stephen Meyer, J. Warner Wallace, Hugh Ross, and other experts that you've seen on this channel in that book club. I'm trying to connect the experts with you guys in a more intimate capacity. This just launched. It's currently less than $1 a day for access to everything. I've put a ton of time and resources into building this. So join today, support the channel, invest in yourself, grow in faith, connect with believers from around the world and the experts that you see on this channel. I hope this is a huge blessing to you guys. I hope it's a no-brainer to join based on the way that it's structured, and I hope to meet you there inside of the Wisdom Society.